Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
Welcome to mini episode 444 of Real Life Ghost Stories. And I have 2 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from the 24th of January 2025. And story number 1 comes from Megan. First, I would like to start off by mentioning a story I heard in your podcast a few months ago. I forgot the date you put this story up, but it was based in Grafton, Massachusetts. Creepily enough, I live in the town right next door, Westboro, Massachusetts. I took that as a sign that I should finally write in. I have many stories to share. Most are my own experiences and some are my friends and family's experiences. For today, I'm just going to share stories about my grandfather. My home was built in the 1960s by my grandparents. It was one of the first houses on my street. My grandfather was the one who designed the house. My dad laughs and calls it the house that Jack built, because there are a lot of things that don't make sense, that should have been done differently. When my grandparents got older, they sold the house to my father, one of their 5 children, for a reasonable price. My parents took it over, but my grandparents still lived with them 6 months out of the year when they weren't in Arizona. My grandfather, only in his 70s, developed cancer. Shortly thereafter, died in the home. My mom was with him in his final moments. She told me that he looked around the room smiling, shortly before he died, and said, "Do you see them?" And when my mom asked, "See what?" he said, "The angels, they are so beautiful." Fast forward a year later, I was born. My mom didn't want kids at first, even though my dad did. After my grandfather passed away, my mom felt so bad for my dad that she suggested that they have a child and got pregnant with me right away. From the moment I was born, I felt connected to my grandfather. As I got older, if I was ever going through a hard time, I would pray or talk to him. And whenever I saw pictures of him, it was like I already knew him. I felt closer to him than I did to living relatives. To add, I later found out that my bedroom was the room that he passed away in. My first experience, I was pretty young, 6th grade maybe. My dog at the time was sitting at the end of the hallway upstairs with her ears up, and she was intensely staring at something. She sat there frozen for what felt like minutes. I walked up behind her and she jumped up and started barking loudly at the wall. Not even out a window, the wall. That was creepy as fuck. But that was a small thing though. Fast forward to the 8th grade. I woke up in the middle of the night and had an urge to sit up in my bed and look down that same hallway. At the time, I would sleep with my bedroom door open. My dad, or so I thought, walked out of his room and stood in the middle of the hallway looking at me. I said, "Dad?" twice, with no response. Then I realised, that is not Dad. It was my grandfather, who I recognised from pictures. Once I had that realisation, he turned, walked down the hallway, and disappeared into thin air. I saw him clear as day. He was sort of glowing, with a white haze around him. He was wearing blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and he was carrying a metal bucket. I was scared shitless, to say the least. I laid back down, threw my covers over my head, and to my surprise, I fell back asleep almost instantly. The next morning I ran into my dad's room and told him what happened, and he didn't believe me because he is a skeptic. I later told my mom, and when I told her the details of what he was wearing and carrying, her jaw dropped. She told me that he always wore white t-shirts and blue jeans, and that he always carried a metal bucket around with him. He had polio and was on crutches his whole life, so he used the metal bucket to carry things in. That is something I had no idea about. When I saw his spirit, he was walking freely without his crutches. I think he just added the metal bucket to give me confirmation that it was him. When I told my grandmother, who is still living today, she is 96 now, she believed me as well, and told me that she has seen him 4 times since he has passed. A few years later, on a hot summer's day, I went for a nature walk with my friend Colleen and 2 other guys from our school who were brothers. We stumbled upon an empty beer can. As I stepped over it, I had a very random thought. I wonder if my grandfather is able to see all the bad things I get up to, like going to parties and drinking. Just a few weeks later, I went to visit my mom's cousin, and she did a reading for me since she has psychic abilities. She told me that my grandfather came through. She said that he was with me recently. She said I was walking near a lake with a girl who had curly brown hair, perfectly describing Colleen, and 2 boys. She said he was with me at that moment. I was floored. The exact time that he popped into my head, he was with me, and my mom's cousin confirmed it. There was no way she would have known about my nature walk. I then asked her to ask him if the boys were brothers, and she laughed and said that he shrugged his shoulders and said, "I don't know." I asked my aunt, "Why hasn't he come to visit me in spirit form again?" She said that he knew that he scared me, so he didn't want to scare me again. How sweet. I still have yet to see him again, so I guess that she was right. But I do still feel his presence occasionally, and I do still talk or pray to him here and there. Between weird noises, rocking chairs moving on their own, and other things here and there, I know that he's still around. I'm 29 now and still live in the house with my father and my now fiancé. My dad retires in 4 years and has offered for my fiancé and I to take over the house. I didn't originally want to stay in this town, or Massachusetts for that matter, but being the only child, I don't feel right selling this house to strangers, considering it has only ever been in my family and that my grandfather's spirit is within the home. With that being said, we decided to take it over. To finish my story, I was listening to your podcast today, and when I got home, I told my fiancé that I was going to write to you about my grandfather. My fiancé replied, "Well, crazily enough, something happened today in the house." He said he was watching a show on TV and he paused it to go and take a shower. After his shower, he went back downstairs and the TV show was playing again. No one else was home, not even the dog, and the remote was not moved. Nick looked at the timestamp and it had played only 5 minutes from when he paused it, but his shower was 20 or more minutes long. When he told me this, I blurted out that it must have been my grandfather saying hi and introducing himself. You know, sometimes I really do think that some people are so blessed to have loved ones that look after them after they've gone. You know what I mean? These sort of guardian angel loved ones that make sure that they keep an eye on them and they come and see them in various ways. Now, I mean, it's not great when it freaks you out, right? The dog barking at the wall is pretty creepy. And then sitting up and thinking that it's your dad and it turns out that it's your granddad walking with a metal bucket, which is so specific, right? And you never met this man. But to say he was walking with a metal bucket must have made your mom and your grandmother, must have made their blood stop, you know what I mean, in their veins, where they were like, "Oh no, he did always carry a bucket because he had crutches and he needed something to carry things in." And maybe you're right. Maybe that's his way of being like, "I'm going to show you who I am," so that when you say this to other people, they'll be able to say, "Oh my God, yeah, that's actually your granddad." And your train of thought really made me laugh, do you know, when you were like, "I wonder if my granddad is able to see all the bad things that I get up to, like partying and drinking and stuff." I used to have those same trains of thought when I was a teenager. You know, I'd be like, do my dead grandparents, are they watching me doing all these chaotic things and thinking, "Oh my God, why is she doing those things?" I mean, I'd like to think there's some sort of clause in the afterlife or some sort of haze, some sort of shield whereby your relatives do not need to see you doing things that they in life wouldn't want to have seen you doing. You know what I mean? Where they can be like, "Oh, yep, not going to watch that. Thank you. Don't want to see them getting up to that. Thank you very much." I'd like to think somebody has thought about this and installed some sort of filter so that relatives can't see things that you get up to, you know? But I am glad that he's been able to show you that he's still around and that he's still, shown himself to your fiance in those little ways. I do think it's such a beautiful thing. And I think, I think that we all should be grateful that there's the possibility that people are looking out for us from the other side.
Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
Are you a homeowner looking to sell your home fast and want your cash now? How about getting cash for your home twice? Hi, I'm Sarah Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Empower Home Team with Keller Williams. Our cash offer stands above the rest. With our cash offer, you get the majority of your funds based on your home's value right away. That's right, cash in the bank within days. We will then sell your home for top dollar and you get the rest. Yes, with our cash offer, you get paid not only once, but twice. Call us now at 703-637-SOLD or go to DebbieHasTheBuyers.com.
And our second story today comes from Sarah. Back in February 2001, my husband Peter and I were married after many years together. We actually discovered that we were having our first child the day after our wedding day. This was fantastic news, especially as I had been told by my doctor that I may never have any children. Our first child was born, a beautiful, healthy baby girl who was named Holly. Shortly before her first birthday, we discovered that my mother-in-law had cancer and didn't have very long to live. She was only 55 years old and such a fantastic lady. She was the kind of lady who could cook, sew, do any craft, hang wallpaper, and she was loved by everyone. Before she passed, we told her that I was expecting my second child, again another little girl. Sadly, she never got to meet Jessie and died a few months before her arrival. After a few months, my father-in-law asked if we could swap homes. He was rattling around in a beautiful old country cottage on the County Durham Northumberland border, built in late 1800s. And we were living next door in a tiny 2-bedroomed house which was originally an old granary. This was a great idea, and the girls would then get their own bedrooms. Holly and Jessie were now a little older, and Holly had started to have severe night terrors. She would wake up screaming and crying. It was very frightening to watch. We could only hold her to stop her from hurting herself. This went on for a few months. Eventually, we swapped homes and the girls were given their own bedrooms. Holly had a large bedroom in the old part of the house, adjacent to our own room, and Jessie was situated at the rear, in an extension that must have been built in the mid-70s. Bedrooms were decorated and we finally had a beautiful family home. I still do, always felt a bit uneasy with changing my late mother-in-law's decoration of her much-loved home. My father-in-law assured me that she would have loved what we had done to the place. We took down walls, opened up fireplaces, had a full rewire, everything was updated and we loved it. After several years of living in our new home, I decided to have a little party with some of my friends, not a normal party. We invited a lady over called Christine Clairvoyant to give us all individual readings. Peter was at work, the girls were asleep in their rooms, and it appeared to be going well. One by one, we took our turns going upstairs into my bedroom where Christine was waiting to give each of us our readings. My mum even had a turn, while she was there to watch the girls in case they woke up. I don't remember a whole lot about my own reading, but the one question I wanted answering was to know if my mother-in-law was happy with us and the changes that we had made in her home. I never told the clairvoyant anything about myself, only my name and my address. I think I remember her spouting off a load of miscellaneous crap that could have been tied to anyone, so rather unremarkable really. After this event, Holly's nightmares got so much worse. She would wake up crying, saying something was in the corner of her room. She had to have night lights on. She began to bedwet. It was a horrible time. My hubby worked a lot of night shifts at the time, so I was normally left to deal with it on my own. Other things started happening, doors opening, pictures moving, as I watched. Shadows, noises upstairs when I was downstairs and I knew the girls were in the other room upstairs. I began to get so frightened I really didn't want to go upstairs or stay in the house on my own. The house always felt cold and scary. I hated being in it. A few weeks later, on a sunny Sunday morning, my own mum asked if we would like to go to a local car boot sale, which I thought would be fun. So off we went, my mum, the girls, and Ben, our 6-month-old black Labrador. When we got there, we strolled around looking at tables of once-loved items. But my mum wanted to look at every single table. The dog was pulling on his lead, Jessie was beginning to get twisty in her pushchair, and Holly kept pulling items from the tables. So I decided to go and wait somewhere quieter while I waited for my mum. Ben kept pulling and pulling. In the end, I gave up and went where he wanted to go. Ben had pulled me over to a car where there were a few people standing behind a table. They had nothing to sell but were giving out some information. I could see lots of flyers. Ben instantly calmed down, stopped pulling and laid down next to Jessie in her pushchair, and Holly waited by my side for her nan to join us. One of the guys made eye contact and I thought, here we go. I'm an atheist, and instantly thought it was some Bible group wanting to chat. I don't have a problem with religion, it's just not for me. However, the guys started chatting quietly to each other so I couldn't hear, still occasionally glancing over in my direction. Odd, I thought, and continued to wait for my mum. Eventually one of the guys approached me and said hello. He introduced himself. They were not a Bible group, but a local paranormal investigation team. We started chatting and he said that they'd noticed me and thought I had fitted the description of someone that they were looking for. This was getting stranger by the minute. He told me that a medium from the local area had stopped by their table and said he was looking for someone who was at the car boot sale who needed his help. She would have a dog who would pull her to them and a couple of children. At first I laughed and I thought, what a load of crap. But he gave me a card with the medium's name and contact number on it and told me to give him a call if I needed help. I picked up one of their leaflets and then my mum came over and we left. I mulled over contacting the guy on the card. His name was Richard. I spoke to Peter about it, who thought I was losing the plot and that it was a ridiculous idea. I was living in his family home where he had grown up and nothing was ever seen or experienced. He doesn't believe in the paranormal. Everything can be explained, apparently. I eventually plucked up the courage to contact Richard and he knew I needed help. He told me not to give him any information about my situation and we arranged for an evening for him to come over. He asked if he could bring the paranormal team too and I agreed. My girls were packed up to my parents for the evening and I waited. At around 7 p.m, Richard turned up with 3 members of the paranormal investigation team. I was a little anxious. I was told to say nothing about the house, the history of the house, or anything that I may have experienced. On his journey to the house, he said he saw men on horses in Roman attire and a monk. There is a Roman road directly under my kitchen. And there is a pool in the woodland close to the house called the Monk's Pool, where it is rumoured that a monk died. They decided to go for a walk around the house first. They went in every room as Peter and I made coffees in the kitchen for them. Trigger objects, recording devices and many other items were positioned around the house. It was just like something out of a paranormal TV show. When they all came back to have their hot drinks, Richard turned to me and said, "Have you had someone in here to do readings?" My jaw hit the floor. He beckoned me to follow him. We went upstairs into my bedroom. "She sat there," he said, pointing at a spot in the room. I couldn't believe it. The room had been moved around and furniture was in different positions since the clairvoyant had been, yet he pointed to the exact point where she sat her chair. After many cups of tea later and pizza into the early hours, Richard sat us down into the living room and explained that to do readings you need to close sessions correctly or you leave doors open for people to come in and out whenever they want. This lady had not done that, and spirits were entering our home whenever they wanted and were attracted to Holly. They were coming through an area in my husband's closet, a dark corner of our bedroom. As we discussed different things and Holly's experiences, the curtain pole in the living room, which I was sat under, came off the wall with force. It was drilled in with wall plugs and had been up since my in-laws had moved into the house. I have the whole evening recorded on an old VHS tape. He did a blessing over the house to help us and asked us to come back to see Holly, without the team members, which we agreed. The next day I told my parents what had happened. My dad surprised me the most, a retired headmaster who didn't believe in such things. Said he wanted to stay with us while Richard chatted to Holly when the day came. Richard returned and we didn't explain to Holly what was going to happen. We just said it was a friend coming for a cup of tea. He sat with her and asked her to draw him a picture of our family. He left her with a pack of pencils in all colours and went into the living room to leave the budding artist to do her work. While she was colouring, Richard told us, so Holly couldn't hear, that he expected her to draw something else in the picture, not just us. He also said the family would be coloured in bright colours and the other thing would be black or dark. He was correct. A few moments later, Holly came bounding in with a great drawing of Peter, myself, Jessie, Holly and Ben, a black lab in red coloured pencil, situated in front of our lovely house, but with one window, all scribbled in black. This would have been Holly's bedroom. They sat and chatted to each other for ages. Holly was always very shy of strangers, but from the moment Richard entered the house, she went straight up to him, grabbing his hand, pulling him in. This was very odd for Holly to do this. It was as if she knew that he was there to help her. Richard walked around the house with Holly and myself, and she pointed out all the dark things that scared her. Richard then sat with us while I put on cartoons for the girls to discuss his findings. There was one entity, not a nice one, in Holly's room that was trying to communicate with her. There were other spirits also coming in. One was a lady, a mother figure who was trying to protect. I can only think that this was Peter's mum, looking after her granddaughter and her beautiful home. Richard advised doing a full blessing on the house, closing the portal and stopping all spirits entering our home. I agreed, but then thought, I can't stop my mother-in-law from coming, this is her home, which Richard agreed to. Holly helped Richard, placing salt in corners and positioning a couple of crystals in areas where Holly felt scared. He also gave her one to keep. From the moment Richard and Holly added the protection to our home, her bedwetting and night terrors stopped instantly. My dad is now very open-minded about the paranormal after what he witnessed with his granddaughter, and my husband still tries to shrug the whole thing off. Holly is 23 years old now, and still has her special crystal. She still dislikes Peter's wardrobe and the corner in her bedroom. She doesn't remember much about her creepy kid era. As I mentioned earlier, I still have the VHS tape showing the trigger objects moving, footsteps banging, and the curtain pole flying out of the wall, but I refuse to watch it. A part of me thinks it might all start up again, so it's best to lock it away in the attic. Our house is happy again. It feels warm and everyone who visits says it feels lovely. I occasionally hear the odd sound or a door open, but it doesn't scare me anymore, as I believe it's my mother-in-law checking on us and the girls, which I'm very happy with. I do think there's kind of like a quiet beauty and comfort in this story, right? And I know that obviously there's a lot of awful things that happen, but obviously your mother-in-law dying so young, like 55 is so young to be diagnosed with terminal cancer. And obviously she must have been desperate to keep that connection between you and her granddaughters and her son, obviously, and the house that she lived in that she loved so much. And it feels like Holly is just, some sort of conduit, These severe night terrors. I mean, and night terrors are absolutely horrendous. If you've ever witnessed anybody having a night terror, they are vile, vile things. It's not just having a bad dream. It's something much more than that. And, there is, like we've spoken about recently on the podcast, there are people who believe that renovations, changing things in a house can unsettle things that are already there, And I have to say, I've had a lot of experience with psychics and clairvoyance. I had one experience only very, very recently. And sometimes they're not great. And it's not that, the clairvoyant that came to your house wasn't a good person or wasn't good at what she did or whatever. But is it possible that she opened a doorway and then just didn't close it? Because I do think some people, dive into the world of psychic mediums and clairvoyance and maybe don't fully realize the extent of what they're working with, And I mean that both in terms of whether or not you believe in clairvoyance or not. Like, if you do believe in clairvoyance and psychics and these people are doing hectic things and not closing down sessions and messing with things maybe they shouldn't be messing with, but equally it's also a very human thing. Like sometimes I think clairvoyants become clairvoyants not realising how much people need to hear certain things, or how much people might rely on a clairvoyant when they shouldn't, you know what I mean? So it's a pretty tricky, it's a tricky undertaking to be a psychic medium or a clairvoyant. And I think it's fascinating that you're at this car boot sale and these people are like, a psychic told us that a woman with a dog would come to us needing help, right? That the dog would bring her to us. That is insane. I would immediately trust Richard with my life. I'd be like, Richard, you're the real deal. Anything you say, I'm going to listen to it. That is wild. And the fact that he came to your house and all this shit is happening in the house, like doors opening, shadows, noises, stuff moving, and you're physically seeing this happen, your wee girl is having these nightmares, I'd be like, Richard, come on in, all right? And the fact that he's able to say a clairvoyant was in this house, sat right there and didn't properly close the session. Oh, that is wild. Richard, I need to know all about this person, Richard. I do think it's really interesting that he was able to say, look, I'm going to ask Holly to draw a picture and she is going to draw something dark in the picture. And I think it's really interesting too that he obviously included her in the process of trying to manage this without scaring her. Do you know what I mean? Going around the house, putting salt down, giving her special crystals, etc., etc., which obviously worked. It obviously worked for her. And that's the important thing. I just think that story is wild. That has really blown my mind. I want to know more about this Richard man. Like I want his details. I want to see this man. I want to have a conversation with him. That is incredible. But I'm glad that he was able to say, we need to keep your mother-in-law around, because again, these guardian spirits are incredibly important. And I'm glad for Holly's sake that everything calmed down, because she must have been going through such a distressing time, and it must have been so distressing for you guys as parents to see it. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Megan and Sarah for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from the 24th of January 2025. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you can get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
This podcast is brought to you by Aura. By the time you hear about a data breach, your information has already been exposed for months. On average, companies take 277 days to report a breach. That's 9 months where hackers have access to your personal data. That's why we're thrilled to partner with Aura. Aura is an all-in-one digital safety solution that monitors the dark web for your phone number, email, and social security number, sending real-time alerts if your info is found. It also includes a VPN, password manager, and data broker removal to help keep you safe. For a limited time, Aura is offering a 14-day free trial plus a dark web scan to check if your personal information has been leaked, all for free at aura.com/safety. That's aura.com/safety to sign up and protect your loved ones. That's AURA.com/safety. Terms apply. Check the site for details.